What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Bulls Latest. Your host, Matt Johnson here. We have finally made it, folks. It is NBA Draft Night, round one set to kick off this evening. Super excited. Let's get into a few moves that went down yesterday. You're going to see a lot more activity when it comes to guys making moves and moving destinations here. The Washington Wizards have traded Jordan Poole to New Orleans for C.J. McCollum, the full deal. The Pelicans get guard Jordan Poole along with guard Sadiq Bey and a 2025 second-round pick. That is the number 40 overall pick, and that'll be tomorrow night in the second round. The Wizards get guard C.J. McCollum, forward Kelly Olynyk, and a future second-round pick. That's an interesting move. You got a couple veterans swapping spots there. That should be interesting to see. Just wanted to go over a quick overview of that. The three-team deal that went down kind of went against my prediction there of Kristaps Porzingis potentially finding a home here in Chicago. This three-team deal between Boston, Atlanta, and Brooklyn makes a lot of sense for these teams. Boston looks more and more like a team who is gearing up for some type of rebuild here. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Jaylen Brown tonight. Does he have an opportunity to be moved along with Derek White? In this deal, Boston receives forward Georges Niang along with a second-round pick. Atlanta gets Kristaps Porzingis, the 29-year-old center, will be able to go and play with Trae Young there in Atlanta. They also receive a second-round pick there as well. Brooklyn, I think, is a solid option here in this move for them. They get guard Terrence Mann plus the 2025 first-round pick tonight in the 2020 or the 22 overall selection in the first round. So pick number 22 tonight, along with Terrence Mann. I think Brooklyn did win that deal. I think they had the best of the three teams there. Along with Boston, I think moving Kristaps Porzingis is a big win, frees them up, kind of gets them out of financial jail, so to speak, with the NBA there. In other news, Kyrie Irving signed a 3-year, $119 million extension with Dallas, or he intends to do so. Makes a ton of sense. They're going to bring Cooper Flagg home tonight. It's a very exciting opportunity for a Dallas Mavericks franchise who I think, unlike a lot of number one overall picks, Cooper Flagg walks right into a situation where he's going to be playing meaningful games from the jump. So extending Kyrie, he's obviously rehabbing that torn ACL, and he will be back hopefully and better than ever. So what this move means for Chicago in terms of Porzingis going to Atlanta, though, I think it just overall increases the likelihood for Chicago to take a power forward or a center tonight if they stay put at 12. I do think, moving into tonight, there's an increasingly high chance that the Bulls do move back and possibly trade down. I'll get to that a little later, but it's given what the Bulls have tried to do here, what their philosophy has been, and kind of the hints that they're giving in terms of moves that they're not making and what they're hanging on to. I think they're kind of moving towards a philosophy of the future. Not surprising, this front office has seemed to be very conservative when it comes to these moves as well. So let's take a look at that a little bit later. I wanted to jump into my prediction for tonight. If the Bulls do hold the 12th overall selection in the draft and they continue to have a strategy to hang on to that pick there, I think the Bulls will intend to take Colin Murray-Boyles out of South Carolina. Now, I've expressed their need for a center and a perennial big man, but Colin Murray-Boyles has the ability to play that big man role. I think at 6'5", without shoes at 239 pounds. This is a player who obviously has shown that he's a strong passer. He has a very solid foul drawing ability, gets to the line a lot, and he is a very strong two-point shooting player. Along with some youth there he brings to this team and some defensive playmaking ability. I think he makes a lot of sense, gives the Bulls a lot of flexibility with this move. That's why I kind of turned my attention to him being picked at 12. I think in the position the Bulls are in, you need guys who can play multiple roles within the rotations on this roster. And I think Colin Murray-Boyles is a guy who fills a glaring need in the front court for the Bulls. Vooch likely to move. We'll see if that happens tonight or in the coming days. He's in the final year of his deal. He's going to be on his way out. The Bulls don't have any big men who are long-term keepers. So should be very interesting to see if Colin Murray-Boyles is the guy that they take at 12. I do anticipate that Kasparas Yakuchonis, the player I profiled yesterday, from the University of Illinois. He's a solid playmaker. I think offers a lot of intrigue. I do believe the way it's looking right now that the Portland Trailblazers will make a play on him just before the Bulls pick at 12 there. I think Yakuchonis goes 11th overall to Portland. We'll see how that shakes out. I mean, but Colin Murray-Boyle is a guy who has shown a lot of toughness in the SEC last year, a very unselfish guy. I think he has a very high floor for a young player, and for the Bulls, in the situation they're in trying to become more youthful and play for the future, so to speak, I think this is a great fit for them. And even though he does lack a little bit of size and perimeter shooting there, he might be a situational fit in certain lineup configurations for Billy Donovan. So I think Colin Murray-Boyles makes a ton of sense there for Chicago. That's my prediction at 12. Now we'll get into the potential of a draft trade. And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about next here. I think when you're looking at a draft night trade tonight, whether it's with guys that Kobe White's been rumored. Kobe White's a hot name when it comes to possibly being moved. I think there have been now moving into tonight some fresh whispers about the Bulls angling a trade up from number 12 as well as possibly trading down. So either scenario makes a lot of sense. That just shows you how up in the air tonight is with the Chicago Bulls and what they could do. Bringing in a few of those prospects that are projected to go more towards the top of the second round. I profiled Powell. I think he's a very intriguing option. He could be taken towards the top of the second round there. He's a very solid young player for value in that part of the draft there. So I just think with the Bulls, it makes a lot of sense if they like several players in this class to trade back and stockpile some of these picks. And I'd be shocked if the Bulls don't stay at 12, but when you look at some of these teams, New Orleans now having made that move at number 7, they just added Jordan Poole from Washington. That's a landing spot for a guy like Kobe White. That's probably the main piece to watch tonight, Kobe White, and if he's going to be on the move, again, going to be a free agent next summer, as I've reiterated, but it does not feel like a likely landing spot in New Orleans for him now that they did land Jordan Poole. And I just think if you look at the rest of the draft picks kind of in the realm of where the Bulls are at, I think, Washington, unlikely. I think Brooklyn wouldn't necessarily want to add him to their core. Now that in the Toronto at 9 doesn't feel like a fit either. So it should be interesting. I did profile Phoenix as both a destination for possibly Nikola Vucevic. That obviously didn't happen. And with Jalen Green now joining their roster to go play with Devin Booker, at 10, I don't know if Kobe White is a fit there either. So let's take a look at potentially, keeping an eye on Orlando, as I still like them to potentially maybe make a move at Kobe White with Desmond Bane there. Orlando, I think, is going to be aggressive. So that's a name to watch. And I just think with this, it comes into play here with the Bulls having a strategy to move down in the first round. I think when you look at this team and the forefront of what they're going to be dealing with and their situation at the moment, it could be beneficial to trade down in the first round here. I think it makes a lot of sense. A trade partner, I think, would be a perfect fit for Chicago and them in their terms. Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City has the number 15th and the 24th overall picks in the first round here. Another team to watch, Brooklyn. They hold the number 8 and the number 19, along with the 26th and 27th picks in the first round here. So there's some teams who are holding multiple picks in the latter part of the first round there, the middle to the bottom half of the first round. They could be looking to make a jump up to 12 or even higher, and that could allow them to include the Bulls in a trade if that comes to fruition there. We'll take a look. I think Oklahoma City, in my opinion, is the team that is the most worthwhile trade partner in my eyes. Whether it's Asa Newell, Thomas Sorber, or Igor Demon, Igor, I think he has shown, all three of those guys have shown that they are of interest of the Chicago Bulls. I think, with the uncertainty of which guy they want to select, there's a lot of guys, if you're the Chicago Bulls, that if you're picking and you're still on the board at 15, you have a good possibility to land one of those prospects. And I've profiled all of those guys leading up to this draft. So for the Bulls, if you want to move that 12th overall pick and kind of stockpile some more picks in the second round, you could land maybe a couple of those guys. We'll see what they do with the players already on the roster. So it'll be very interesting. I just think with the Bulls having embraced the youth movement and the importance of having long-term flexibility, a trade back makes a ton of sense. So while I predict the Bulls to take Colin Murray Boyles at 12 if they hang on to that pick, I myself am leaning more and more towards a trade back tonight in the first round. I just think the Bulls have kind of shown that with their lack of aggression when it comes to some of these guys that have already been on the move. I do think it kind of coincides better with that kind of approach and trading back than trading up, to be quite honest with you. So when you're looking at a likelihood of whether they move up in the first round, there's been whispers of that, like I stated, but it seems more and more fitting to their philosophy and their approach to this point that a trade back is on the horizon for the Chicago Bulls. However, again, I want to reiterate, it is unlikely I think they move from 12, but if they were to make a trade, I wouldn't be surprised, and I hope Bulls fans understand that for this team in this situation, it makes a lot of sense to move back. So we'll keep an eye on that. Super excited for the NBA draft to kick off tonight. A lot hinges on it for the Chicago Bulls. I think there's a lot more to it than just having this one first round pick. There's guys that are hinging on where they could be playing next for the Chicago Bulls and who's going to be on the move, who joins this organization, what the scope of the competitive window for the Bulls looks moving forward. And that's what's interesting. The Chicago Bulls have never been a team that, is out in the public kind of stating what their philosophy is. They've always been an organization who, whether fans like it or not, I personally am not a fan of it, but they work under the radar. They do a lot of the unexpected. They leave a lot of Bulls fans scratching their heads at times, like, what are we doing here? I don't believe that they have nailed a lot of previous draft picks. You look at the regime of Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, their draft pick history here, their history in the draft has not been a good one. Outside of Modest Buzelis, I think he shows a lot of promise. I think he is going to be a solid player at the end of the day. However, that's the one name that I think they've hit on in the draft. So it remains to be seen if this organization can produce and can nail a draft. And tonight, I think you have a lot of scenarios to where you may not see the inevitable jump in terms of adding a star right away, but there's a great opportunity to put the Chicago Bulls organization in a better place moving forward. And I think making this move to stockpile some more picks and give yourself a better chance at the pool of players like an Asa Newell or Thomas Sorber, Igor Demon there, why not do that? Pull the trigger on that. Give yourself some flexibility if you're not a sure-handed team when it comes to having eyes on one guy and one fit. So although I like Colin Murray Boyles and what he offers and his flexibility in a Bulls rotation, I think for this front office, it makes a ton of sense to kind of give yourself some cushion there, so to speak, and play for the future. It's been shown that with the inability to pull the trigger on some of these deals, they are playing towards the long, they're playing the long game. So, although I want to see aggression myself as a Bulls fan, I want this team to win immediately. Obviously, I don't see that happening right away, and I just want them to be set up for more of a longevity in terms of their future. So, going to be an exciting night. I am very excited to see how this goes down. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see. Would you be okay with the trade back? Do you want them to select Colin Murray Boyles? Would you like them to take Derek Queen? What names interest you guys, and what do you want to see tonight? I want to thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Bulls Latest. We will see you tomorrow for tomorrow morning's show. We'll preview the second round. I have a guy that I think will interest a lot of you in terms of who the Bulls could look at. I've yet to profile him, so we'll get to that tomorrow morning. But happy draft day, and thank you for joining me today, guys.